WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange reaching a plea deal to avoid prison for leaking U.S. military secrets. Here to talk about that and more, Congressman Mike Waltz, Republican of Florida, member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks for being here. It's been a long time for Julian Assange here, and obviously the DOJ has decided this is the time to make a deal.
Look, I mean, we can't lose sight of, and what I'm focused on is the actual leaker. That was Chelsea Manning. That was the government employee that handed all of these secrets that exposed confidential human sources in combat zones that we know Al-Qaeda and the Taliban hunted down or tried to hunt down, that exposed even diplomatic cables and others. We had ambassadors kicked out of countries. So I'm focused on the leaker and the fact that Obama pardoned Chelsea Manning right before the Trump administration came in. There's a real debate about whether Assange was a journalist in the, in kind of the guise of the New York Times and the Pentagon Papers and a long history of journalists printing leaks.
And John, you just brought up the contrast of DOJ making this deal and then also pushing forward with the case against the former president about Mar-a-Lago and the classified documents there.
Yeah, right. I mean, on the one hand, we literally have terabytes of classified documents. We can't ever forget Hillary Clinton's highly classified documents on her server. Yet this DOJ just will not stop when it comes to Biden's leading political opponent. I mean, it's two-tier justice, and I think the American people see it.
I want to talk to you about some breaking news before we talk about setting up the debate on foreign policy on Thursday. Wall Street Journal editorial board, Hezbollah isn't getting the message. By restraining Israel, Biden makes a major war in the north more likely. Here's what it says. The Iranian proxy militia could provoke a larger war unless the U.S. gives it a good reason not to. Washington is too fixated on restraining Israel to notice. The White House goal is to discourage a larger war, but a policy of weakening Israel has the opposite effect. And talking to people in Israel, there's a real concern that this is happening in the north, that this may actually transpire.
Yeah, well, and we can't forget, too, that over 100,000 Israelis are internal refugees, have been pushed out of their homes and their communities in the north. And the IDF have told me they're either going to push Hezbollah back or Hezbollah is going to back up. But the administration is so consumed with its left and the criticism from its left in an election year and some type of ceasefire in Gaza that they're ignoring the broader picture. If we want to help Israel, if we want to restore peace, you focus on Iran. Iran is the real disease here, and as long as they have the cash, the weapons, the training, the resources, unfettered, which right now they do, they are going to pump that into Hezbollah, into Hamas, and the Houthis, which just last week sank another ship. 90% of global shipping through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal have now stopped because of Iranian-backed militia. The administration's not talking about any of that. They're just solely with a soda straw view focused on the Gaza issue, and they're losing sight of what could be a broader war.
Let's take a soda straw view of Thursday's debate. It's a big moment. There will be a foreign policy part of this. One of the biggest differences, it seems, with the former president and the president is the issue of Ukraine. You're a big supporter of funding Ukraine and helping Ukraine push back Russia. You're also a big supporter of the former president. How do you think that issue plays out Thursday night and what the former president says about it?
Well, I think foreign policy is actually going to dominate the debate because, I mean, just take the Middle East. Under President Trump, the first president in modern history where the Middle East was better off at the end of his term. ISIS defeated, Iran broke, the Abraham Accords breaking out, and look at it today. And on Ukraine, the president's been clear. He's focused on how does this war end? How do we drive both sides? Former president, excuse me, President Trump, and soon to be the next president, is focused on how does the war end? How do we get both Russia and Ukraine to the table? Is it in America's critical national security interest to have every Russian off of every inch of Ukraine, including Crimea? How long is that going to take? How much will that cost in terms of lives and treasure? And I think the biggest difference you're going to see is an energy policy. President Trump knows if we flood global markets with cleaner, cheaper American oil and gas, you drive down inflation, the price of oil and gas at the pump, and you dry up Putin's bank accounts and his war machine, and Iran too, for that matter. What happened to the vaunted mother of all sanctions that Biden talked about in the run-up. And then I think you'll also hear that the war would have never happened under President Trump, and I think that's absolutely right. And you look at Biden's mistakes on Nord Stream 2, giving Putin a summit, the Colonial Pipeline hack, the minor incursions comments, and he practically invited and gave Putin the green light for the invasion.
It'll be fascinating to watch. Congressman Mike Waltz, we appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.